Hello and welcome to the North Carolina Museum of History and the 21st African American Cultural Celebration. Our presenter, Judy Allen Dodson, will begin in just a moment, but we want to start with a few notes. Remember to ask questions in the chat and we'll do our best to respond to them and share with our presenter. Please note that our presenters and off-camera crew are masked for the safety of everyone. We would like to thank the following sponsor, the North Carolina Museum of History Foundation, for helping to make this event possible.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. We are very excited to kick off our literature and spoken word discussion with Judy Allen Dodson, the author of Escape from Hurricane Katrina. Judy Allen Dodson is a librarian, archivist, and children's book author who works to support children's authors and illustrators of color and to improve the representation of African Americans in children's literature. It's wonderful to see you, Judy. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. This is a dream come true to have the 21st annual African American cultural celebration, in the midst of this global pandemic that we seem to not be able to get out of. And so I want to thank you, Valonda Calloway, for hosting this wonderful literature and spoken word session today. And I would like to also thank the Museum of History for hosting this wonderful, amazing 21st annual African American cultural celebration. And I just want to make sure that I'm not giving any feedback. Is this okay? Can you hear me okay?
Fine.
Yes. Okay, great. So, again, my name is Judy Allen Dodson, and I am a librarian, an archivist, and the children's book author of Escape from Hurricane Katrina. And so, our theme this year is Black People, Green Planet, Environmental Justice. I would also like to say that I am also, I'm not ready for the presentation just yet, but I would also like to thank my co-chair, Kelly Starling Lyons, who is also a children's book author, and she's the co-chair of Literature and Spoken Word with me, as well as the committee, who this year comprised of Crystal Mitchener, who is also a Wake County manager at the Wake County Public Libraries. So I would like to say thank you to all those who helped bring this wonderful group of presenters together this year. So again, our theme is Black People, Green Planet, Environmental Justice. So I just want to touch on that a little bit before I go into my presentation. This is an important, what is environmental justice, you might ask? I'm sure a lot of you know this, but I just want to reiterate this and why it is important for us as a community of Black people to talk about environmental justice. This environmental justice is important because it's a basic human right. It allows everyone to have some level of agency over their decisions that impact their lives. Without environmental justice, many people are made to be victims of the plans and ambitions of others. The environment is all around us. It includes our air, our soil, our water, our plants, and our animals. The plants and animals need a healthy environment to survive. An ecosystem is an area where living organisms interact with a specific way with the local environment to survive. Environmental justice is fairly a new term. It simply means making sure that everyone has a fair chance of living the healthiest life possible. what is an example of environmental justice, you might ask? Environmental justice issues are examples that include adequate, healthy food, adequate transportation, water, water, and safe homes. But there are some injustices: inadequate access to healthy foods, inadequate transportation, pollution in the air and water, and unsafe homes. And so you may ask, well, how can I help? And so we want you to educate yourself about your community issues. We want you to use your voice to speak up against injustices locally and globally. We also want you to contact the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency if you have any questions or you need information, the EPA, the EPA.gov. And I also want to highlight at this particular moment um, an organization, a nonprofit organization that does tremendous, amazing work in their community. And that's the North Carolina ABC2, A Better Chance, A Better Community. It's located in Enfield, North Carolina, under the leadership of Chester Williams and his amazing, tremendous, phenomenal team. And so, with that, they are a nonprofit organization which provides resources and opportunities for the town of Enfield and the entire Roanoke Valley area citizens. So, if you need help in that area or with just how you can help in your own community, please contact abc2.com. They provide COVID testing centers, food boxes for adults, children, and families. So please, we ask you, please get involved. So now I would like to start my presentation. So today I'm going to talk about Escape from Hurricane Katrina, the book that I've written and for children, but it's also an educational resource for anyone who's interested in the history of Hurricane Katrina. And so I bring this to you, and I just wanted to be able to highlight some things about Hurricane Katrina. So today we're going to talk about what is a hurricane. In my book, we weave historical facts into a fictional story. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And also, I want to be able to talk to any aspiring authors, adult or children, and how you can tell only the story that you can tell. And also, I'll give you some interesting facts about Hurricane Katrina. But before I go on, I just wanted to give you a little bit of history about Hurricane Katrina. Well, this year, 2022, we will celebrate. It will be the anniversary. I don't know if we're celebrating, but it will be the 17th anniversary of when Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana, and that happened in 2005. So, Escape from Hurricane Katrina is a fictional story set in 2005, actually 17 years ago this year, about twins Jojo and Sophie as they battle the raging floodwaters in a fight for their lives during Hurricane Katrina. Jojo, a coding whiz, and Sophie, an avid swimmer, and their father get stuck at their home in the lower Ninth Ward of New Orleans. The winds rise, and with them the waves. The levees break, and the floodwaters rage through the city. During the chaos, Jojo and Sophie are swept away. Together, they must find their way to the Superdome, where their fathers should be waiting. But can they escape the wrath of one of the deadliest storms in history? So, Hurricane Katrina made landfall off the coast of Louisiana on August 29, 2005. It hit land at a category 3. And I put this map up here so you can kind of see, if you go to the Gulf of Mexico, in the bottom there, in the bottom center of your screen, you'll see that Louisiana kind of sits right there on the edge, as you can also see where we sit in North Carolina. And so we're off the coast too. So we get hit by lots of hurricanes as well. And so this was a category 3. Hurricane Katrina was a category 3 storm with winds reaching the speeds as high as 120 miles an hour. Like, I can't even imagine that, right? So because of this ensuing, the winds and the destruction and the loss of life, this storm is often considered one of the worst in the history of hurricanes that hit the United States. Uh-oh. So what is a hurricane? A hurricane is a powerful tropical storm. And a tropical storm is considered a hurricane when it reaches winds that exceed 74 miles an hour. So if you remember, I just said that Hurricane Katrina had winds of 120 miles an hour, which was just like a deadly hurricane. Hurricanes need warm water to develop and continuous access to warm water to increase the strength. So if we can have the video. I'm going to play a video for you so you can see what entails in the hurricane and how they start.
Hurricanes. A hurricane is a huge storm with powerful winds and lots of rain. They can be up to 600 miles across and make a spiraling shape like this. Hurricanes are formed over water in tropical areas, and they use warm water as energy. They can move 10 to 20 miles per hour across the ocean. Most hurricanes happen entirely over water, and they aren't dangerous to us. But when a hurricane gets close to land, they can cause a lot of damage. Their winds can be up to 200 miles per hour, and they can knock over trees, power lines, and buildings. They can also cause tornadoes, thunder and lightning, big waves, and flooding. The hole in the center of a hurricane is called the eye. It's a clear part of the storm, no clouds or rain at all. But the area closest to the eye wall, has the fastest and most dangerous rain and wind. Hurricanes are given names by weather officials. For example, this is Hurricane Matthew. It's a powerful hurricane that formed in October 2016. When a hurricane comes, there are a few things you can do to make sure you stay safe. One, keep emergency supplies like flashlights, food, water, and a battery-operated radio. 2, if the storm is powerful enough, you might need to board up your windows to make sure that they don't break. 3, stay away from low-lying areas that are prone to flooding, and don't try to drive in those floods. 4, during the storm, stay inside. 5, have an evacuation plan in case the storm gets too powerful. If your state's governor says to evacuate, then you should be ready to leave immediately. Most hurricanes aren't very dangerous to us. As long as we're careful and prepared, we can stay safe during these storms. Thanks for watching.
Hi, we're back. Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that. I think it was definitely some feedback on my end. I appreciate the comments in the chat that I'm able to see now. So I thought I heard some feedback on my end. I think because I was registered and also on stage at the same time. So thank you for being patient with me. So I do,
Absolutely. You sound great now.
okay, thank you. So I just wanted to continue to bring up the presentation.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, thanks. So, back to telling only the story that you can tell. Okay, so when I was writing Escape from Hurricane Katrina, I was tasked with bringing this story to life. And I'm thinking, I wasn't in the hurricane in New Orleans. And so how can I bring JoJo and Sophie to life? So once I decided to be able to have a girl and a boy in the story and to be able to name them whatever I wanted. I just needed to be able to bring my own personal experiences into the story. So if you see on the left is my daughter who is an avid swimmer. And if you see on the right, there's Sophie, who is now an avid swimmer. And so I just wanted to be able to say, these are the stories that you can tell as an aspiring, creator, writer. If you ever get stuck writing anything, always use your own personal experience. You can always do research. You can always find things, but tell the story that only you can tell. And this is how I brought Sophie to life. And the illustrations do a phenomenal job of recreating my daughter as a swimmer. So here is an idea of my son, who is into technology as well. So I wanted him to be, and JoJo is an avid coder. So I have the real actual path of Hurricane Katrina on the left, and you can see the JoJo on the right, who is actually looking, he's looking at the TV, which is the same storm path that Hurricane Katrina took. And so the left is the fact, which is the actual Superdome. And on the right is JoJo and Sophie. And if you look way in the back, you'll see the Superdome. You'll see the Superdome back there. And so what we wanted to do was to be able to bring that fact into the fiction and weave it all together for us to be able to make this story come alive and to make it as realistic as possible. And again, as I say, tell only the story that you can tell with your experiences, and as well as through any research that you can do. And now we have so many great resources that it's really good to be able to bring the story to life and weave in those facts into a fictional story. So I just wanted to give you some interesting facts about Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina started off as a Category 5 hurricane that occurred during the 2005 hurricane season. Highest 1-minute sustained winds was at 175 miles per hour. The damage, 125 billion, but we know you can't put a price on people's lives. So that $125 billion estimate of damages skyrocketed when you talk about, the loss of life. And unfortunately, we do have to talk about that. And that is a realistic thing that we have to talk to our children about. And I address that in the story, but very delicately. And so that's another part that, when we take these real life incidences that happen, we want to be able to speak about them to children, because we want to be truthful, but we want to be sensitive to their age and to what they're able to comprehend at that time. So Katrina formed August 23rd, 2005. It ended August 30th, 2005. That was a long time for that hurricane to brew in the Atlantic. And what did we say, if you remember early, what causes hurricanes to strengthen? I know you know the answer, but I'll tell you. Warm water. And so that warm water is caused by global warming, possibly, right? So we know that global warming is something that we're, as a world, is dealing with, because we talk about it. We hear our elected officials talking about it, but we also want to be able to bring up that this is not only a problem that is unattained, like what we can't touch on. This is an issue that we all can help with, right? When we talk about pollution, when we talk about our current topic that we're talking about today, our environmental justice. Environmental justice we talk about, but we need to be more aware of. And I'm so thankful that this is a topic that we're bringing to our community. And we are having this as our theme as Black People, Green Planet, Environmental Justice that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so affected countries, the Bahamas, Cuba, and the United States of America. Who was displaced? Over 1 million residents in the Gulf Coast region were displaced. So I don't know if you knew, but a lot of people traveled to North Carolina to become safe, and they had to live in North Carolina and in Texas and in other parts of the world and the country as well. So I also wanted to give you some other interesting facts about hurricanes. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but as I mentioned earlier, Hurricane Katrina was one of the deadliest and most powerful hurricanes. But what were the seasons that were the most deadliest? The first, 2020 was a lot for us as a country, as a global entity to deal with. But 2020 was the number one active hurricane season in history. We had 30 storms in 2020. Not to mention, you knew that was the start of the global pandemic as well. So 2020 really threw us a lot of blows. The second highest, most active hurricane season was 2005. Go figure, right? That's when Hurricane Katrina hit. We had 27 storms then. And that was in 2005. And 2021 was the third most active hurricane season, according to the Hurricane Center. And we had 21 named storms that year. Well, just last year. So I bring that to your attention to say, we can do better. We can help with environmental injustices. We can help with environmental justice by using our voices and becoming active. So with that, I want to read a little bit of my story. We can take the video down now. And so I'm going to read from Escape from Hurricane Katrina. And I just bring this to your attention before I start reading, that the book is set into chapters for like a chapter book. And so in the chapters, each chapter alternates between JoJo's voice and his perspective to Sophie's perspective. So I'm going to take us to chapter 9, and this is from Sophie's perspective. It's Monday, August 29th, 2005 at 9 a.m. Water, water. JoJo is yelling from downstairs, but I don't understand what he means. I know we have plenty of water now, especially with all the rain. Of course there's water everywhere, I mumbled to Pickles, who stretches out next to me. We just had a hurricane come through. Pickles blinks her yellow eyes, and what I imagine is in agreement. Just relax, JoJo. You're always so overreacting to everything. Daddy, Sophie, come down, JoJo yells. It's an emergency. All I want to do is rest and get up, but I get up and I meet Daddy on the stairs, now rushing from the attic. We hustle to the living room to see what all the commotion is about. Daddy, come look, JoJo calls. Water is pouring under the front door. Come see. The living room is flooded. I run to the living room, and there it is. Water rushing under the front door. The whole living room is soaking wet. What's going on? I ask. Daddy, trying not to panic. Why didn't you wake us up? Daddy looked stunned. I don't know. I've been in the attic repairing the hole in the roof. I checked the entire outside and inside of the house when I woke up. Water wasn't in the house then, says Daddy. He frowns. This is an emergency. Jojo, you're right. Hurry up and get dressed. We have to leave soon. Looks like the levees broke wide open. Daddy peeks through the boarded up windows and then tries to open the front door with a firm yank. It won't budge. My heart is pounding. Jojo and I run over to our rooms to get dressed as fast as we can. I put on my t-shirt and some jeans. Jojo does the same. I slip on a pair of swim shoes. I give Jojo a pair too. We grab our Lawless Junior High School backpacks, the ones we stuffed with supplies yesterday. Jojo grabs my arm and we dash downstairs. Daddy meets us at the bottom of the steps and tells us to turn back around. The water is rising too fast in the house. Our first floor is already full of water up to Daddy's shins. We have to get out of the house now, Daddy says, over the rushing water, which is with a stern warning Daddy gives us. But our best chance to escape is from the second floor. Daddy wades through the water, rushing in with reinforce the already boarded up doors and windows, which slows the incoming water just a little bit. Meanwhile, Jojo and I run upstairs to Jojo's room. He opens his backpack and jams in a can of white spray paint, Jerry's cage, and some can of tuna fish for pickles. I scoop up pickles, and Jojo opens the window and for us to climb out of using the safety ladder. This is the first time I've actually looked out the window since I woke up to Jojo's yells. The entire neighborhood is flooded with water. I can see the Demarys, the next door neighbors, on the front porch, waving for help, water sloshing at their feet. Daddy races upstairs. He planned ahead and secured the ladder to the house yesterday. Daddy goes first, climbing out the window with the backpack of supplies on his back. Once he gets his footing, I hand him Pickles, and they both crawl down together. Pickles is squirming in Daddy's arm, squishing from all the water surrounding us. I'm up next. The ladder waves from side to side. Daddy's standing in the moving water, holding the ladder steady at the bottom, while Jojo grips it at the top. It's still hard to climb down with each step. How did Daddy get down so easily? This is my first time on this wobbly thing. Daddy yells up to me to put one foot in front of the other and keep my eyes on the ladder and not on the ground. Once I'm down, Daddy gives Pickles to me so I can brace the ladder with both hands for Jojo. Pickles is really wiggly now, and it's hard to hold on to her. She meows loudly and scratches me, and as she tries to climb up my body, she wrestles her way out of my arms and jumps down into the water. I reach for her, but Daddy stops me from falling into the rising water. It's waist deep. We see her swim away and over to the tree and climb it. Daddy reassures us she's better off than we are right now. And I'll stop there. So that's a little suspenseful. So I wanted to be able to bring the story and Jojo's and Sophie's anxiety to light at that particular moment. But I also wanted to be able to tell you that at the end of each chapter, we have reality checks. I don't know if you can see them. So there are reality checks at the end of the chapter. And the reality checks, what that does is it provides what actually happened on that particular day. So it really gives a good fact and fiction, as I showed you in my presentation earlier. And I apologize for the feedback because I could hear it as soon as I jumped on. So I should have stopped in, but hopefully you get the gist of what I was trying to say. And hopefully you could hear over the feedback a little bit. But so that is the end of my presentation. And I welcome you to read Escape from Hurricane Katrina and get some facts. But I also want to be able to give a little highlight on a few of some exciting things going around the state of North Carolina. So I am, as Valanda mentioned earlier, I am a librarian and an archivist. I am the head of special collections at the North Carolina State Archives. And with that position, I have been honored to work with the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission. And so the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission is partnering with the South Carolina African American Heritage Commission. And we are at this time gathering and pandemic stories from Black experiences. And so I just want to read a little bit about that for you as well. So the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission and the State Archives of North Carolina are partnering with We Goja Foundation on a new initiative, Black Carolinian Speak, Portraits of a Pandemic, to capture experiences of the African Americans in North Carolina during COVID-19 pandemic. The project will gather first person's testimonies, letters, music, images, art, and other documents that will be a part of a physical and virtual exhibit. So I just want to be able to give you a little bit of what Angela Thorpe, the director of the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission, has said. She says, "We're excited about this project and the collaboration with South Carolina." Again, Angela Thorpe, the director of the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission, which is part of the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. This is a tremendous opportunity to gather and share stories of the Black experience in a particular challenging time. This project will serve as a resource for generations to come. To learn more, contact aahc.nc.gov, and that's the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission. Thank you.
Judy, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And can people who are joining us now participate? Can they share their stories, their art, and how can they do that?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. I'm getting that feedback again a little bit though. Okay. So I'm so glad that you asked. So as part of the archives, we are taking the stories as well. And there is a form that you can fill out if you go to the African American Heritage Commission, Black Carolinian Speak, and you can fill out the form, and the form comes directly to me, and I will be happy to take your stories and contact you, and we can be able to have your stories as a archive for generations to come, for people to research, for people to understand what the Black community was going through during the pandemic.
Wonderful. Let's get back to your book. Right now is a great time, if you have a question for Judy, to type your question into the chat, and Judy is happy to answer it, and I will relay it to her. And Judy, I have a couple of questions for you. Can you first tell us what drew you to children's literature?
Oh, that's a great question, Valanda. Thank you for asking. Well, I have two children. and so and so of course, as me being the librarian, we're all avid readers in our household. So while I'm reading all the stories that we had at the time to my children, my son says, "Mommy, is there another story?" And I said, "You know what? I can write you a story." And so with that, I become fascinated with children's books and children's writing, and writers of children's books. So that's how I get started with my own children, and they're wanting more stories. And also too, what also brought me to be able to want to write is because we saw so many nice, wonderful children's books, but a lot of the characters didn't look like us. So I wanted to be able to bring a JoJo and a Sophie to my children at that time, to be able to say, look, you are represented, because representation, as we know, matters to children's self-esteem.
Absolutely. Do you feel like it's getting better, Judy, the representation?
I think we have a long way to go. And I think, as you can see behind me, I have there's two local children's book authors, and as you can see, Kelly Starling Lyons, who wrote this book, Dream Builder, about Phil Freelon, and the latest book is from Adria Theodore, and she's local here in Durham, A History of Me. And so it's a wonderful, beautiful story about a little girl who is the only Black student in her class who still feels a little bit unsure about who she is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a beautiful story. And I think it is getting better. I think we're getting to the point where Black authors are being seen and heard, and our stories are being taken on as creative projects for others to be able to join us in our journey of writing for children.
And Adria is joining us, and she says, thank you for the shout out.
You're welcome, Adria.
And Crystal wants to know, how long did it take to research the events in your book?
Oh, well, since this is a very sensitive and difficult topic to challenge, to research, it didn't take too long, but I had to take a lot of breaks because of all the emotional impact that it had on me. And not only that, I mean, this could have happened to anyone that had been hit by a hurricane, as we know in North Carolina, how it can be devastating to our communities. But the reason why I was so drawn to this project was because there were so many environmental injustices pre the Hurricane Katrina for the residents who lived in the Ninth Ward, right? So the research didn't take long. It was just very emotional. I had to take a lot of breaks, but it brings us back to the theme, environmental justice. How can we do better? What can we do better in our communities to be able to forge a wedge in our Black communities to be able to say, this can no longer go on. We must do better. We have to do better for the sake of our health, our families.
Judy, can you share any advice for aspiring authors who want to do what you're doing?
Yes. They always say, and this is so, it just seems so, simple, but it is to write. It is to write. It is to tell the story that only you can tell. As if you remember in my presentation, I brought in all of my experiences. I brought in the two children, the girl and the boy. I have a girl and a boy. I brought in that my daughter is a swimmer. I brought those things. And so to be able to bring your story to life, I would say, start writing your story. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about, is this the right format? Just start writing. And then also this is what makes you an avid, a very good writer, is you have to read the genre that you want to write. You can read, a different genre, but for you to be able to see what the how to bring characters to life, how to formulate the story once your story is written, but while you're reading, but just to see how that story is packaged together. So reading and definitely writing would be what I would advise.
Wonderful advice. And Judy, Crystal wants to know, are you currently working on another book?
Thank you, Crystal, for that. Yes, I am currently working on another book, and I think it's okay for me to talk about now. It hasn't been formally announced, but so this is like breaking news, right? So I am working on a picture book about Arthur Ashe. So that will debut January of 2023, next year. So please look out for that and follow me on my website at judyallendodson.com. And I will keep you posted, and I'll be sure to make sure that I post updates on, and give pictures and things like that as well.
Wonderful. Very nice compliment from Kelly, who says you can feel the emotion as you read Escape from Hurricane Katrina. Great example of putting your heart on the page.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And Judy,
Kelly,
Chris wants to know
I just want to let you know that Kelly is the author of dream builder here about architect Phil Freelon, who was from Durham.
Wonderful. Chris wants to know if you have any thoughts on the issue of cultural appropriation.
Say that again.
Chris wants to know if you have any thoughts on the issue of cultural appropriation.
Oh, that's a very interesting. Locally, I would imagine that you're speaking about, and not, yeah. So I would like to just answer this question, Chris, if we can, about environmental justices. I feel like environmental justice tends to be affecting the Black community, the Black and Brown community, tends to be in the poorer communities as well, the more rural communities as well. So I feel like us as people who have the capabilities and the connections to be able to help those people tell their stories, to be able to get those stories out to communities and nonprofit organizations like ABC2, who can help with those injustices.
All right, thank you, Judy. And there was a question about the number of people who died as a result of Hurricane Katrina. Did you do research on the number of people who perished in the storm?
I did. So when I did the research on the number of people who had passed away during the storm, and some of them were for various reasons, I had to gently be able to capture that research and put that in a way that was palatable for young children. If I was writing an adult book, it would have been easy to say, this many people died and this is how they died. But I wanted to be able to gently explain to the young reader, like, this is what happened to these people, without taking their innocence away, without scaring them, without giving them too much information too soon. But I also want to say too, to the viewers that are listening right now, I also want to say that I'm so happy that I wrote this book. It was before COVID, but it's so relevant now that we are in COVID, because JoJo and Sophie, go through a very traumatic experience. They will never be the same ever again after this hurricane that they have to experience. And if you look behind me, you'll see that the floodwaters are so high. I don't even know how they could even manage it, but I had to formulate in my head that they're able to manage it. But I do want to say that it was very traumatic for JoJo and Sophie to experience this. And I know that our young readers who are listening as well, and that you may come in contact with, are going through a lot through the pandemic. And so I want this book to be a way for them to be able to be encouraged, to know that there is help, that yes, you will never be the same after this experience again, but there is always hope, and there's always someone to help you through whatever you're going through, whether that be through therapy, whether that be through talking with your friends and your family, or your teachers and your educators. But there is help, and Escape from Hurricane Katrina and JoJo's and Sophie's characters will be encouraging to the young readers.
What kind of response have you received from parents as well as young readers?
That they are so excited that JoJo is a coder, and that he and Sophie knows how to swim. Sophie knows how to swim. That they say, I want to take swim lessons. And that is what representation does. If you see someone who looks like you, then you think that maybe you can do what they're doing as well, right? And so that was, and bringing it back to, or bringing it forward, that's what Arthur Ashe did for me. When I saw Arthur Ashe playing tennis, I was able to think, I can play tennis as well, because I saw someone who looked like me. So I've gotten such a great response from so many young readers about the encouragement that they have received from JoJo and Sophie during their trying times.
Well, Judy, it has been wonderful to hear from you. Thank you so much for sharing from your book and sharing your words of wisdom for all of us who are participating today.
Thank you so much for joining me. And I also want to say that up next is Crystal Giles, another children's book author. And we have a great lineup of presenters in literature and spoken word. And so please join us for the whole day. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Be sure to watch some live performances taking place throughout the day, screening on our website, nc-aacc.com. Thanks for joining us for the 21st Annual African American Cultural Celebration, which continues today through 5 p.m.